Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for listening in. I'm Matt Santelli from the Pierce County Aging and Disabilities Research Center, and today we're continuing with our Hot Topic series of interesting information for our senior and disabled population. And today we're talking about how to recognize and avoid scams, and we're going to be highlighting some COVID-19 related scams. Plus, we're going to update on the economic impact stimulus payments, the most recent one that went out starting in March into April, and now we're into May today. But I wanted to give an update on where that stands as well. So before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about COVID-19, since the more we know, the less likely we will become victims of scams and fraud. And the important thing to think about is that COVID-19 is a strain of virus for which humans have no immunity, as far as we know, and that's why it's referred to as being novel and new to human exposure, which makes it both contagious and fatal. And those are lessons we've learned over this last year, unfortunately. The COVID outbreak in Washington State has been ongoing since January of 2020. And so there are, fortunately, some vaccines available now. There's one from Pfizer, one from Moderna, and one from Johnson & Johnson. As of today, I believe the Johnson & Johnson is back in circulation, but they'll let you know which vaccine you'll be getting when you schedule to get the vaccine. And there are some hospital treatments as well, like monoclonal antibodies that are hopefully improving the survival rate for people who end up in the hospital. They still are advising social distancing. They still are advising mask wearing, like I'm doing today, especially when you're indoors and there's other people around. And they're encouraging folks to avoid unnecessary travel, wash hands, disinfect surfaces, wear the face mask, avoid sneezing or coughing forward, try to cough into your shoulder or into your elbow. And again, disinfecting frequently used surfaces and items at home and in your car. So let's talk a little bit about scams and fraud. They're always circulating, and so why are there scams, including COVID-19 scams? And why are they targeted at seniors and the disabled? Well, number one, crooks who perpetrate scams and fraud often seek to exploit current events such as the COVID-19 outbreak. And so it wasn't long after the COVID-19 outbreak occurred last spring that there were scams and fraud circulating. And the current most common COVID-19 scams and fraud are selling phony tests, phony treatments and cures, by claiming that fees must be paid for tests or vaccines, by promoting fraudulent charitable causes, and by financially defrauding those who are worried about the outbreak. And again, this time of year, it's May today, their scams that are circulating are IRS scams, where they'll call and say, oh, you owe money to the IRS. There's also a lot of scams going around that claim to be calls from Amazon saying, oh, you ordered some packages a few months ago and you still owe a balance, things like that. So again, they're piggybacking on current events and current situations in order to perpetrate the scams. And crooks understand that seniors and the disabled are easy to target because of their opportunity, availability, and response. So you always want to think OAR, opportunity, availability, and response. So how do opportunity, availability, and response make seniors and the disabled easy targets? So opportunity, number one. Opportunity, crooks know that seniors and the disabled have reliable sources of income, such as monthly Social Security payments, pension payments, and COVID-19 economic impact payments. So a lot of seniors will ask me, well, I'm not worried about being targeted because I only get a few $1,000s a month or $1,000 a month income, or a few $100s a month income. But that's why they're targeting you, because they know there's an opportunity there because you have income there. These payments give the crooks the financial opportunity to commit scams and fraud. The crooks do not care if your income and savings are high or low, since any income and or savings makes you an easy target for their scams. So that's where the real key lies, in that they're knowing that there's scams and fraud that they can perpetrate because they know you have some income and savings, and that's why they're targeting you. So think about that opportunity. It's not so much that you're wealthy, it's just that you have a reliable source of income and some savings. That's where they see their opportunity. So continuing with that, how does opportunity, availability, and response make seniors and the disabled easy targets? So availability is the next thing to think of. Crooks know that seniors and the disabled are following the COVID-19 guidelines to stay at home. So I'm at the senior centers today. Usually there'd be a lot of activity in the building, but the people are still staying at home to follow the recommendations to avoid virus spread. But staying at home gives the Crooks the availability, so that's our second of the three, opportunity availability, to contact seniors and the disabled through phone calls and text messages, U.S. mail, email, and through front door visits to their homes. And finally, response. So this is the third of the three, opportunity, availability, and response. Crooks know that seniors and the disabled are typically courteous, polite, thoughtful, and willing to provide a generous response to those who make contact with them. So this is the third of the three. So all three of these elements go into why scammers and crooks target seniors: opportunity, availability, and response. So what are some examples of scams and fraud specific to COVID-19? Like many other scams, the scams related to COVID-19 are already targeting seniors and the disabled through phone calls, text messages, emails, U.S. mails, and front door visits. And again, we're about a year into this, and these scams are still proliferating. And those types of approaches, how they approach you, phone, text messages, email, U.S. mail, front door visits, those are true for all the different scams that are out there. But today we're going to focus a little bit more on the COVID scams. So what are some examples? Number one, marketing of home testing kits for COVID-19. These have been talked about a lot, but at this time the FDA has not approved any such COVID-19 testing kits for use at home, although there's talk that those may soon be on the market. So for right now, if you're symptomatic, you talk to your doctor's office and they recommend you go for a test, they're going to tell you where to go to get the testing done. There's testing sites right now as of May happening down at the Tacoma Dome. There's testing at most of the pharmacies now, the retail pharmacies. There's other large testing locations. And we'll have the contact information for you for the health department where you can call and get information on a local testing site. And then number two, marketing of vitamins, nutritional supplements, beverage mixtures, and special diets that allegedly can prevent a person from contracting the COVID-19 virus. At this time, the FDA has not approved any such products for treatment or cure of COVID-19. So again, there's a lot of marketing for preventative methods to avoid getting the virus. It's not been established that any of those methods work. So again, what they're practicing is what we talked about at the beginning: avoiding large gatherings, washing your hands, disinfecting surfaces, social distancing, wearing the mask, scheduling yourself to get the vaccine if that's available to you, getting tested if you're symptomatic, those types of things. And as we go on for more examples of COVID-19 scams and fraud, we'll talk about unsolicited phone, text, email, or U.S. mail offers of too good to be true deals on face masks, hand sanitizers, and disinfecting. These fake offers are designed to have you send money or provide credit card and banking information to make the purchase, but the products are actually never delivered to you. So this is the old scams that have been around forever, where they say, look, we got a great deal on a vacation to Hawaii, or a great deal on a warranty for your car, whatever the case might be. But in fact, there's nothing that's actually available to you. It's just an approach to get you to provide banking information or credit card information. So right now that's still happening, where they'll say, oh, there was even a story where a person was told, oh, you can get the vaccine sent to you in a liquid form of some kind. That's not happening, so keep that in mind. And then the old familiar grandchild in trouble phone call scam, which now has been adapted to fit the COVID-19 outbreak. So this typically was a scam where someone would call and say, Grandma, Grandpa, I'm in jail, I got pulled over for speeding, and you have to wire money to the courthouse here to get me out of the jail, or whatever the case might be. And the trick on this scam is that by saying Grandma, Grandpa, and having a young voice involved, that you might be willing to say, oh, is this my grandson Joseph, or is this my grandson Sarah? And then the scam begins. So this is one that's very old, but it's now been adapted, where this one, in this version, the crook, usually a teenager or somebody working with the crooks, will call the senior, pretending to be a grandchild or other young relative. The crook will say to the senior, it's me, Grandpa or Grandma, I need help from you. I am sick in a hospital with COVID-19, and I cannot be treated or given medication unless you send money to me or to the hospital. Of course, there is no sick grandchild or young relative, and the crook is simply hoping that Grandma or Grandpa will be frightened and will then wire money or give out credit card information over the phone. So again, this scam is getting more and more common because of the COVID situation, and unfortunately, again, they're piggyback on current situations because with the vaccinations having circulated widely among seniors, not so much among the younger population. So it's actually the younger population that's becoming ill now and ending up in the hospital. So again, they're piggybacking on current circumstances in order to perpetrate these scams. How about some more examples of COVID-19 scams and fraud? Unsolicited phone, text, email, or U.S. mail requests for charitable donations to fraudulent charitable organizations claiming to be providing help to those harmed by the COVID-19 outbreak. Now keep in mind, charitable organizations that are properly operating in the state of Washington can be verified through the Secretary of State's office, 360-725-0378, again 360-725-0378, or www.sos.wa.gov. And a true charitable organization, if it's legally operating in the state of Washington, will have been registered with the state of Washington Secretary of State's office. And the standard there is that at least 70 cents of every dollar you donate actually goes to the charitable cause. That means 30 cents on the dollar is just going to the infrastructure to make the fundraising happen, but 70 cents on the dollar needs to go to the charitable cause in order for the Secretary of State to register a charity in the state of Washington. So like anything, there's plenty of local charitable organizations working with the population that are affected by COVID. There's the Red Cross, there's United Way, Multicare and Franciscan. They both have their own charitable foundations. Those are nonprofits. So keep that in mind. There's a lot available out there, and there's really no reason they should be calling you out of the blue asking you to donate. More examples: unsolicited phone, text, email, or U.S. mail requests for you to report personal information, including names, addresses, dates of birth, social security numbers, bank account numbers, credit card numbers, to pay fees or to register or enroll for the COVID-19 vaccine. 3 types of vaccine, Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson, are now being given to all residents of Washington State over the age of 16. So that's opened up to everybody now, and I believe the Johnson & Johnson is back in circulation. So there's no reason that anyone should be intervening to make that happen for you. There should be no incoming calls about that. You can certainly make an outgoing call, and the health department does have a line to help you get scheduled, but there should be no reason someone should be offering you testing or vaccines. Unless it's your doctor's office, of course, they might be calling, but they've pretty much not played a huge role in the vaccination thing. They've left that up to Multicare, Franciscan, Kaiser, the big retail chains to take care of that. So again, for more information, contact your doctor's office or the Pierce County Health Department. And so there's other vaccine scams that the FBI have also warned about. So the FBI has been involved in these because they cross different state lines when these are happening, and some of them are coming from overseas as well. So they work to investigate those domestic threats in terms of how they're impacting our population. So like I talked about before, even pop-up ads, text mail ads offering early access to the vaccine for a fee. As we know, the vaccines were rolled out in different levels, and now it's open to everyone. There's really no levels left until we get to under the age of 16 having availability. Requests for people to pay to put their names on a vaccine wait list. Again, there's more supply than demand right now. There's no reason that should be happening. Again, like I said, offers to have doses of the vaccine shipped to your house. The doses of the vaccine still have to be administered by a healthcare professional. Emails or phone calls or text messages for someone claiming to be at a vaccine center, medical office, or insurance company, asking for personal and medical details to verify eligibility to obtain the vaccine. We're way past that point. Everybody over the age of 16 is now eligible for the vaccine. And calls to seniors and others claiming to be from Fema or a funeral home and asking for personal and bank account information to receive a COVID funeral relief fund payment. There is an actual COVID funeral expense reimbursement program. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. But they do not make calls to you offering you to sign you up for that. Doesn't matter if someone's say they're calling from a government agency or calling from a funeral home or wherever. That's a scam, because the only way to start that process is to contact FEMA at their 1-800 line, or their toll-free line, I should say. I don't think it's 1-800 line. And that's how the process gets started. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But that's a new one that's come up where there is a real benefit, but the scammers are over here claiming to be in control of it when they're not. So again, reminders on the most prominent COVID scams. Number one, there are no fees required for anyone to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. By government mandate, all public and private health insurance plans must offer the COVID-19 vaccine with no out-of-pocket fees required from the recipient. And uninsured individuals also are offered the COVID-19 vaccine with no out-of-pocket fees required. So my wife, for example, she has Kaiser. She had some symptoms a few weeks ago. She called Kaiser on a Friday. They said, well, we're not administering it here right now, but you can get it in Federal Way at a different clinic. And my wife said, well, it's not a Kaiser clinic though. And they said, it doesn't matter, just go up, give them your Kaiser card, and they will bill it out to Kaiser. So they billed it out to Kaiser. She had both the nasal swab test and the blood test. And then when she called her doctor on Monday, she was still feeling better, but a little symptomatic still. And then they had her do a nasal swab at Kaiser. So she actually got 3 tests in 3 days, all of which were covered by her insurance at 100%. So now let's move on to the COVID-19 funeral, cremation, burial expense benefit through FEMA. It is not a scam, but you have to make sure that you apply correctly. So this benefit is very new. They just rolled it out. I've just been getting information on it. Provides for expense reimbursement for those individuals who paid for associated funeral, cremation, and burial expenses related to a death caused by COVID-19, or that's suspected of having been caused by COVID-19. Now, this benefit allows the person who paid for the expenses, and it can be if they had paid for more than one person, to get reimbursement for those expenses. And I believe for a single person, it goes up to $9,000 that you can get reimbursed with the proper proof, and it could be $35,000 if you paid for multiple people. That's the maximum benefit. But it's a reimbursement program. And the only way to apply is to call FEMA, which is the Federal Emergency Management Agency, to talk to an agent at 1-844-684-6333. And when you call this number, because I called it to test it, you're going to get a long message. It's about a 2-minute long message telling you all the things that you might need to qualify for this program, and that the only way to qualify it is to stay on the line and talk to a live agent. Once the automated message was done, I probably was on hold for a minute, if that, and then the person picked up and I was talking to a live person. They actually do the application with you over the phone, and then they will tell you where to send the documents. You can US mail them or email them them based on what they tell you. So again, she was very clear, the woman I talked to, the only way to start the process is to call, stay on the line, and talk to a live agent who will take the application with you over the phone. And one thing they make clear, the death certificate for the person that you're seeking expense reimbursement for, the death certificate must indicate the death was attributed to or caused by COVID-19. So I wanted to get that information out there right now, because that's one that we're already hearing the scammers are piggybacking on. They're calling and saying, oh, I'm the one who can help you apply. You're eligible for this because you had a relative die. They're claiming to be calling from a local funeral home. There's a specific process and specific documentation that's required to show that you were the one who paid for expenses for a funeral service or cremation or burial for a person, and there's proof that goes with that, and the only way to do it is to call FEMA to apply. So that's kind of the basics on scams and fraud. There's generally always going to be scams and fraud going on, and they do approach you based on those three things we talked about: opportunity, availability, and response. And it's going to run the whole gamut. It's going to be a U.S. mail phony sweepstake offer, a phony check insurance reimbursement offer. It's going to be an email that says, oh, there's a problem with your account with Bank of America or Social Security. Click here to resolve that problem. It's going to be a phone call that says, oh, your Social Security account's been frozen. Stay on the line and we'll take care of it. Or you owe money to the IRS and we've frozen your bank account. You need to wire us money to take care of it. It's going to be someone approaching you at the front door saying they've got a satellite system that they want to install for you. Or that they're an inspector from the city and they're here to look at things inside your house. Or it's going to be someone in a public place, like in a parking lot, who approaches you and says, oh, I ran out of money, or I need money for gas, or can you help me? Or sometimes the scam is, oh, I've got money to give to you for safekeeping as long as you can take me to the bank. I mean, it runs the whole gamut. And again, there's a lot of aid available to folks right now. And believe me, I work at the county. There's lots and lots of aid available to folks. So there's no reason that you should have to be the one to contribute to someone that's approaching you or coming to your front door or calling you. There's plenty of aid available out there for people who are homeless, unemployed, disabled, whatever the case might be. So really, don't fall prey to those scams, because they're preying on your sympathy to help somebody who doesn't really need help. Okay, so another thing I want to emphasize when I'm talking about scams and fraud are the economic impact payments that have been coming from the U.S. Treasury. And these started about a year ago. There was a $1,200 payment per person, and then there was a $600 payment over the winter, and now it's a $1,400 payment. And just about everybody who's listening to this was likely eligible for all three of those payments. But right now, it's the $1,400 one that's outstanding. And they first said it was going to be rolled out middle of March, then they said April 1, then they said middle of April. It's been rolling out this month. I've talked to several seniors who have got it on direct deposit. I haven't talked to many who have got it in a paper check or in a debit card. But those are the ways you're going to get it. You're going to get it either direct deposit if you're a Social Security recipient or an SSI recipient or a Veterans Benefit Administration recipient or civil service. It's going to go direct to that same bank account, $1,400 for you and a spouse. If you're someone that doesn't have a record with them, like for example, the IRS, I generally pay some taxes every year. I don't get redeposited. So last year, my wife and I each got $1,200 checks, paper checks, from the IRS. Now my dad ended up getting a debit card this last winter for $600. He got a paper check over the summer. So it could come by paper check or it could come by debit card. And the debit card actually comes from an address in Omaha, Nebraska, and it does say economic impact payment on the return address envelope. So if that comes through, make sure you call if you have questions. There's a number in there to call, because it is an actual MasterCard or Visa debit card. Some people are getting those instead of getting the direct deposit or the paper check. So just reminding people to be mindful of that. And it's eligible to most U.S. adult citizens, some non-citizens, through the month of April into May. Again, $1,400 single, $2,800 married couple. Some dependent adults may also be eligible. So if you had a parent living with you and they were listed as your dependent on a tax return, you could get money for them. In the same vein, people with dependent children are getting additional $1,400 payments as well. And again, like I said, if the Treasury Department does not have your direct deposit information, a paper check or Visa debit card will be sent via U.S. mail to their address on file. The debit card return address will be Economic Impact Payment Card, P.O. Box 247022, Omaha, Nebraska 68124-7022. Everyone else, even if you haven't filed a tax return, all the federal government payments, Social Security, Railroad, Disability, Veterans Administration, Civil Service, they will get the economic impact automatically sent into their bank account via direct deposit. And the same holds true if you're an SSI recipient. An SSI recipient is someone who doesn't have work history but is disabled and receiving a cash grant from the government. Those are going to go directly to them via direct deposit for those people who have it. Otherwise, it'll go on their Direct Express debit card. The payments have been getting sent out in March. They're continuing in April. They should have been all sent out by now, but for probably the paper checks and the debit cards. And they do not count as income or resources for any benefit program you might be on. So if you're on basic food, money doesn't count. If you're on a medical program through the state, this money does not count as income. Their rule is that within 12 months of receiving the money, they want you to have spent it because it's designed to stimulate the economy and circulate back through the economy. So if you got that payment a year ago, that was $1,200, they want you to have spent that out. You can spend it on anything you want, but they want it to be spent out if it's time for them to review your status in terms of your income and resources. Many of you, that's not relevant, but for folks who are on government basic food or government medical, not Medicare, but government medical through Medicaid, that money will count as a resource, but 12 months after it's sent to you. So finally, some additional resources. For more information about preventing and recovering from all scams and fraud, you can always call our office. I work at the Pierce County Aging and Disabilities Resource Center, 253-798-4600, or you can visit pierceadrc.org or www.ftc.gov. For COVID-19 questions and vaccine registration, just contact the Pierce County Health Department, 649-1412. That's a 253 area code. They can not only let you know about testing, they can let you know where vaccination sites are available, and if it's a site that needs to get scheduled for an appointment, they can schedule you right on the spot. Or if you have general questions, you can call them at 1-800-525-0127. And then they do have a website locally, www.tpchd.org, and then coronavirus.wa.gov is the statewide website. For more information on your economic impact payment, you can visit www.irs.gov. There's a identifier on there where you can enter your Social Security number and it'll tell you where your payment is. Now, for example, I didn't get my $600 payment this last winter, so when I filed my tax return for work here recently, there was a box on there where I could check that I had not received that and that I was asking for that as part of my tax refund, because this year I'm getting a tax refund. So there's a similar process where they will guide you through, even if you don't normally file taxes and you didn't get the $600 payment, you can file a simplified tax return and ask that to be credited back to you in a check back from the government. And then finally, to verify charitable organizations operating in the state of Washington, you can contact the Secretary of State's office at 360-725-0378 or www.sos.wa.gov. So just in closing, if you think you've become a victim of scam or fraud, whether it's you gave out a bank account information, whether you wired money, whether you might have given some credit card information out. The first thing you always want to do is contact your bank or credit card company. You want to let them know, this credit card, I gave out the number, or this bank account, I gave out the number. They're going to want to right away freeze that account and assign you a new credit card number or a new bank account number. As far as wiring the money, it probably won't come back to you, but they still want you to call in and file a police report on that, because they do track those in terms of trying to find where that money's going and how they're getting it from people. So you can always call our 798-4600 number. We'll give you the number for the non-emergency police reporting office, where you can even get a case number if you need to, if they've compromised your bank account or credit card, because the case number allows you to be held harmless if there's additional charges on those accounts. And then just keep in mind always that these crooks and scammers do what they do for a living. This is how they get by. And I'll tell you a story once. I had a client that lived out in Sumner, Edgewood area, and she was a widow. And so one day a gentleman knocked on her door, and he said that his van had broken down on the street in front of her house, and could he push it into the driveway for safekeeping while he went back to work, and then he would come back in a few days to fix it. And certainly she said yes, of course, because she was very nice. So he comes back 3 days later. He's got about a 10 or 12-year-old girl with him, and he asked her if she could watch the little girl while he fixed his van. So of course she goes inside. The little girl is visiting with her. The little girl asks to go out in her backyard to look at her garden. So they go. About an hour or so later, the gentleman rings the bell again, comes out. She comes out, and he says, "Oh great, the van's all fixed. Thank you for taking care of my daughter," and drives away. Well, a couple of days later, she goes into her basement. She looks around. Something doesn't look right. Well, she notices that her husband's antique gun collection, which was on a wall behind their downstairs bar area, is missing. So she calls the police, and they question her and say, "No, there's no signs of forced entry. Had you been gone for a while?" "No," she said, "I've been here every day." "Had you had any visitors?" And then she remembers, "Oh yeah, a nice young man came in with his daughter. He was fixing his van." And they said, "Unfortunately, ma'am, that same guy has been perpetrating that same scam all over Western Washington." And she said, and they told her, "Once we get a report locally, we find out that he's doing it in another town north or south of here." So fortunately, she had those guns insured. She was able to get the police case number to show that it had been a theft, was able to report it to her insurance company, and got reimbursed. But again, she was heartbroken, and she just really wanted to tell her story. So the police called our office. She was a senior. I went out, kind of reviewed what other services she might need and things. And she admitted, you know, I get lonely sometimes. I don't see my grandchildren enough. And this gentleman seemed so nice. He was polite. He was friendly. The girl was so sweet, and I can't believe they were crooks. And so that's what they do. They're going to not portray themselves as some thug threatening you. They're going to portray themselves as the most desperate person in need, or the most sophisticated business person, or the most capable computer expert who's calling you to take care of a problem that you didn't even know you had, and that's how they get you to give up the money. That's the opportunity, availability, and response, and they appeal to your sympathy, they appeal to your family obligations, they appeal to your sense of safety and security, they appeal to your possibility of not knowing a lot about some of the systems in your home and them saying that they can fix it for you. They appeal to you as a conscientious person who pays their bills on time to tell you, "Oh, you have a bill that's still owing," or "You owe money to the IRS," or "There's been a problem with your account." So they really operate in a way that they're always trying to put you in doubt about your situation, and then telling you that they're the one that can resolve that doubt and concern that you have, and that's how they're so successful. So I hope you learned something from the presentation today. We're always on the lookout for new scams that occur, so always call our 798-4600 number. You can always say that you want to talk to me, Matt. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. If you have another small or large group that you'd like me to talk to, a church group, as we move forward, hopefully we can do more of these talk talks in person, we can certainly do that, hopefully, safely, or we can do it online in this virtual sense. If you have a meeting that's happening over the computer, I'd love to give this presentation to your group. So if you call 253-798-4600, just ask to speak with Matt, and I'd be happy to set you up with that. And Kate will have the PowerPoint here, that's on paper, that I printed out, so she could forward this to you if you get in touch with her, so you'll have this available, or you could show the video to other people as well. So spread the word. Let's do a community of support for one another, where we're all spreading the word about scams and how to avoid them, and sharing the stories with one another of how someone tried to approach you and how you responded. And one thing I will say, the more you respond, the more they're going to come after you. So if they call you on the phone and you right away know it's a scam, it doesn't help you to talk to them and fool around with them. You just need to hang up the phone as quickly as you can, because the more you talk with them, the more they're going to come after you. The same goes true for sweepstakes offers and other things. The more you respond to them, the more you're going to get. I've yet to have anyone win a sweepstakes that I've ever known. I've had some people win lottery and even win at bingo. I've never had anyone win a sweepstakes that comes through the mail. So keep that in mind as well. A lot of the things that circulate that look legit are not. And anything you need here locally, you can get. Or through Amazon, or through Walmart.com, or Costco, whatever the case might be. There's so many services and products available that can be delivered to your front door. There's no reason someone calling out of the blue can offer you anything, or threaten you, or say that I need to help you as a scammer, that you need to respond to, because there's computer experts here locally, there's home repair experts, there's all kinds of people that want to help seniors. So no one calling out of the blue saying that they're going to help you. You don't trust that person. That's how you'd fall into a scam. All right, thank you very much for listening. I hope you learned something today.